She really hated him more than anyone else. Ellen Corby was born Ellen Hanson Corby on June 3, 1911, in the small town of Ryan, Wisconsin. She grew up miles away from the bright lights of Hollywood, which would one day define her legacy. She grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and knew early on that the stage and screen spoke to her in a deep way. She was more than just skilled. She had a sharp mind, was sensitive, and was quietly passionate. Things about her that became her trademark on camera. She didn't start acting right away after high school. To get into Hollywood, she used a back door. In the early 1930s, she worked as a copy girl and continuity clerk. She learnt a lot about how films really work from the long hours she spent behind the camera, which is something that many artists never get. She learnt how to read a scene like an expert, and how to feel it like an artist. The way you watch, the speed and the act all work together to make something magical. But all that time spent watching made her want to come out of the shadows even more. Ellen finally started getting small parts in films around the middle of the 1930s. Many of them were unnamed, but they were hard to miss. She made an impact with her small frame, sharp eyes, and clear voice that lasted much longer than her screen time. The movie business quickly found out that Ellen Corby wasn't the type to steal scenes. They were changed by her. Always there, always on time, and quietly attractive. Directors liked her as a character actor, and people remembered her even when they didn't know her name. It's a Wonderful Life 1946, Little Women 1949, Shane 1953, and Sabrina 1954 are just a few of the great Hollywood films that Ellen was in over the years. Even in small roles, she was able to show strong emotions with the tiniest of movements, which made an unforgettable impact on audiences. In 1948, she made a big splash when she played Antrina in I Remember Mama. She won a Golden Globe and was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for her honest and emotional performance. This made her one of the most respected supporting actors of her time. Even though Ellen was becoming more famous, she never wanted it for its own sake. She was happy to serve the story and make every role she played seem real. Ellen became well known on TV in the 1950s and 1960s, when she was in popular shows like The Twilight Zone, Bonanza, The Andy Griffith Show, Perry Mason, and The Beverly Hillbillies. She had a huge vocal range. She was naturally charming, whether she was playing a strict mother, a weird aunt, or a kind, quiet neighbor. Her movies always made people wonder what kind of character she would play next. Each time she showed up, she had her usual mix of warmth, wit, and soft power. People in the audience may not have always known her name, but they knew her right away because she was there and it felt natural, comfortable, and real. But it wasn't until 1972 that Ellen Corby played Grandma Esther Walton on the popular TV show The Waltons. This part would become the most famous of her career. The show was set during the hard times of the Great Depression and followed the ups and downs of a close-knit Virginia family. In the heart of it all was Ellen, whose role as the head of the family struck a chord with viewers. She brought a mix of strength, kindness, and quiet humor to her role as Grandma Walton, making her the emotional center of the whole family. The relationship she had with Will Geer, who played Grandpa Walton, made their characters one of the most emotional and real older couples on TV. 3 Emmys were given to her for her work on the show, which solidified her place in TV history. But bad things happened in 1976 when Ellen had a serious stroke that locked up part of her body and stopped her from speaking. A lot of people thought her career had ended all of a sudden. Ellen, on the other hand, was never one to give up. She fought her way through rehab with amazing resolve and eventually went back to living with the Walton family, weaving her real-life recovery into Grandma Walton's story. It wasn't just a show when she came back. It showed how brave she was and how much she cared about her job. A lot of people were moved to tears when she came back on screen, not just because they loved her character, but also because they loved Ellen herself, a strong woman whose part made her famous. Ellen Corby was a private, kind, and highly spiritual woman when she wasn't acting. She liked living a quiet life in California, away from the press, and made friends with many of her co-workers that would last a lifetime. Her fame never made her less humble or less friendly. People who worked with her often said she was a guide, someone who helped them, and someone who made them feel better on set. The cast and team of the Waltons thought highly of her, not only because she was talented, but also because she was always wise and kind. During the long run of the show, Ellen kept working well into her later years by appearing in special shows and other TV projects. Even after she stopped acting, she still had a big impact. In Hollywood, she was a figure of beauty and inspiration because she never gave up on her craft. She was strong when things got hard, and she lived by timeless values like family, love, and persistence. Ellen Hansen married Francis Corby in 1934. He was a film director and cinematographer 20 years her older, and had been working in Hollywood for a short time. Ellen was still making her way in the business, working hard as a script supervisor and aspiring actor. This union put her in touch with someone who already had a lot of experience in the movie business. Francis Corby, who was known for being very good at technical aspects of being behind the camera, gave Ellen new creative ideas and job chances, which helped her learn more about the craft. Even though they were different ages, at first they seemed to be a good match for each other. With his years of experience and her young drive working together, Ellen often said that Francis inspired her to follow her own artistic interests. His deep knowledge of film gave her a unique look into how stories, cinematography, and direction work, which sparked her growing interest in the field. Their house turned into a lively spot where artists, directors, and writers could get together, an open space for creativity, where Ellen could let her dreams of becoming an actor and screenwriter grow. But as the years went by, their marriage started to show signs of wear and tear. There was a quiet gap between them because of how fast-paced Hollywood is and how their goals were always changing. Ellen was becoming more independent and making a name for herself in a male-dominated field. Francis, on the other hand, was settled in his job and focused on it, so he had his own priorities. In 1944, after 10 years of marriage, they split up. Even though they didn't have any children, Ellen looked back on that time with thought rather than sorrow because she saw it as a turning point in her life. It changed how she thought about relationships, personal growth, and the sacrifices people often have to make to follow their artistic dreams. The end of her marriage was the beginning of a new time of learning about herself and being free. Ellen met Stella Lucetta 10 years later in 1954. This meeting would have a huge impact on her personal life. Stella, a kind and loyal woman, came into Ellen's life at a time when close friendship and emotional connection were more important than fame or glamour. She gave Ellen the security and understanding she had been looking for. Their friendship grew easily because they respected and cared about each other. Ellen and her partner became lifelong friends over time, and they were there for her through the ups and downs of her personal life and her Hollywood job. Stella turned into more than just a friend. She was Ellen's rock, giving her strength, support, and unwavering love all the time. With each other they made a quiet, private world away from the spotlight of fame. Their home was full of laughter, shared hobbies, and simple pleasures. Ellen spent many difficult years playing Grandma Esther Walton on The Waltons. Stella was always there for her, even when filming schedules were tough and the part was emotionally taxing. When Ellen had a major stroke in 1976, Stella took care of her and fought for her rights, helping her get better and getting her back on the show. This is a powerful example of how much they loved each other. Due to the strict social climate of the time, they never went into specifics about their relationship in public. However, it was very close and marked by lifelong commitment. Ellen Corby was known for being kind, professional, and having a warm, caring spirit on set. Her co-workers were like family to her, especially when she was on The Waltons and played the beloved Grandma Esther Walton with honesty and heart. Behind the scenes, though, Ellen's close friends and family said that not all of her professional ties were great. One surprising dynamic hinted at tension and showed that even Ellen, who is known for being kind and admired, had to deal with problems in Hollywood just like everyone else. It looks like Ellen Corby had a strong but quiet dislike for Richard Thomas, the actor who played John Boy Walton. Over time, their tension is said to have grown. Even though they kept a business, polite relationship on set, Ellen's feelings were much deeper than most people thought. She once said, "I never had patience for arrogance." It was impossible for her to ignore the fact that Richard had that air of youth about him that makes people dislike him. When The Waltons first came out in 1972, they met for the first time. Richard Thomas, who was only in his early 20s, quickly became the show's big star. He got fast praise and attention for his role as John Boy, the sensitive and driven young writer. Ellen, who is decades older than him and has worked in Hollywood for a long time, handled the show with the discipline that came from working in the old studio system. In her book, being on time, being ready, and respecting the order of things were all musts. Richard didn't always live up to her standards, she thought. Ellen is said to have said that he was clever. Good skills aren't worth much if they make you cocky. I sometimes just wanted him to be on time and remember that this was a job, not a classroom. He liked to talk about art and ideas. Their fights didn't start right away. It seemed to go on through small disagreements and repeated times of anger. Ellen thought Richard was smart and skilled, but she often thought his young confidence was a sign of condescension. Richard, on the other hand, was influenced by younger people and sometimes thought Ellen was too strict and unwilling to try new things. As time went on, small tensions slowly grew into a complicated situation that made the famous series feel tense. Behind the scenes, it was clear that Ellen Corby and Richard Thomas were not the same. Ellen once said that he had that easy charm, the kind that makes everyone like them, but I never did. Behind the charm was a big ego, which I could see. Her direct honesty made her younger co-stars respect her but also get tired of her, and Thomas was no different. Little things happened over the years of shooting that slowly made things more tense. Ellen was a total stickler, and she got angry when scenes had to be filmed more than once. He often blamed Richard for not paying attention, which Ellen thought was unrealistic. She grew up in a time when actors had to say every line perfectly, and she thought that younger people sometimes took their chances for granted. He'd joke around between takes trying to lighten the mood, she shared. However, it seemed rude to me. I had worked hard for decades to get where I was and I didn't have time for games. The younger actors loved Richard, which made Ellen even more annoyed. She didn't understand why they didn't notice what she thought was carelessness. At the same time, Ellen was never mean or angry. Even though she was mad at Richard, she was always professional and never insulted him in public or refused to work with him. But people who knew her well could feel the stress building up every time they were together. Members of the crew said that Ellen became stressed or rude when he was around. Years later she said, "He just got under my skin. I have no idea why. It could have been his confidence or he might have made me think of someone from my past. I only remember that those long scenes with him were the worst." Ellen's views towards Richard changed a little as she got older and thought about them. Which is interesting. She never denied that their relationship was hard though. After she had a stroke in 1976, Richard was one of the group members who wrote her letters of support and nice things to say. Ellen was always being honest, so whenever his name came up she couldn't help but smile. It was a subtle nod to a difficult and unforgettable relationship that had left its mark on her long and eventful career. He meant well, Ellen said. But there are some people you simply can't connect with, no matter how many kind words they send your way. Richard Thomas left the Waltons to work on other projects years ago, but Ellen was said to still talk about him with a mix of admiration and irritation, as if their tense relationship had left an indelible mark on her mind. This strain was very interesting because it was different from Ellen Corby's well-deserved reputation for being friendly and helpful. It was hard for her to pick a favorite co-star on the show. Will Gegeer, who played her husband Zeb Walton, and the younger actors she treated like grandkids. But with Richard Thomas, the link never really took shape. It could have been a difference in age. There might be a clash of egos. Or maybe Ellen saw in him the same traits she had learnt to calm down in herself while managing the harsh world of Hollywood. No matter what the reason was, her feelings were clear. She told him straight out, "I liked him as an actor, but I didn't like him as a person." In the end, Ellen and Richard's tense working relationship turned into one of those little-known behind-the-scenes dynamics that made the Walton family's legacy more complicated. It was impossible to deny how well they got along on screen as family members. This shows how professional they were. Even so, Ellen's private anger remained behind the smiles and touching moments. Her dislike for Thomas was one of the few problems she never fully fixed, whether it was because of pride, morals, or just her personality. Ellen Corby died at the Motion Picture and Television Country House and Hospital in Woodland Hills, Los Angeles on April 14, 1999. She was 87 years old and had been sick for a long time. Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California, is where she was buried. She left behind a tradition of grace, strength, and unforgettable performances that still move people today.